Thank you for your introduction. My name is Hugo Bijmans. This is Christian Doerr, and we're from TU Delft's Cyber Threat Intelligence Lab, and we are happy to present our work on cryptojacking, which is called Inadvertently Making Cyber Criminals Rich. And in this work, we will tell you how cyber criminals are actually making money using your PC without you being aware of it and without installing anything on your PC. In this presentation, we will show how cybercriminals deploy these attacks and on which scale they are operating. So first of all, how does a cryptojacking attack inside the browser look like? Well, nothing more than just this. You're an innocent web user and you're visiting, for example, the Pirate Bay. The Pirate Bay deploys such a crypto mining script, and without they installing anything on your computer, without you knowing it, your CPU spikes to 100%. And you're now currently mining cryptocurrencies, in this case Monero, for the owners of the Pirate Bay. So how does this actually work? Let's dive into the anatomy of a browser-based crypto mining. You're an innocent user again. You're going to a website by an HTTP GET request, retrieve a response, and within this response there is an HTML page, which has two interesting script tags. First of all is, I pressed the wrong button. Oh. First one is the script tag requesting additional resources from CoinHive, which is a crypto mining service. This request fetches two additional resources, one being the JavaScript miner, which orchestrates the whole mining operation on this website, and the second one being a highly optimized WebAssembly module, which is responsible for the actual mining operation that takes place. Once this is loaded, it is initialized by this function call, which involves a side key. And this side key is very important because this side key is essentially the Monero wallet or account ID, or basically the bank account of the attacker to which funds made by mining on this miner are being transferred to. Once that is all initialized, your browser will set up a WebSocket connection to a proxy, which is in contact with the blockchain for the currency you're mining for, in this case, Monero. And then when it's all set, your browser starts mining for the owners of this side key. So cybercriminals can deploy such an attack in a number of different ways, which we call attack vectors. And the first one is pretty straightforward. Website owner initiated. For example, on the Pirate Bay, the owners of this website were looking for new ways to earn a profit, and they deployed a crypto miner on their website to let their visitors mine for Monero. But we've also seen attackers hacking often popular websites and doing nothing more than just installing a crypto miner which mines for them, and thereby using the visitors of this website as miners. We've seen this at CBS Showtime, which was recently hacked. We've also seen attackers deploying cryptojacking scripts through malicious advertisements spread by advertisement networks. So these advertisements include also a cryptojacking script and are being served over a large number of websites, which was, for example, the case at YouTube, which showed these advertisements with a crypto mining script attached to its viewers. And last but not least, we have seen attackers abusing vulnerabilities within the third-party software ecosystem. For example, in WordPress, they've exploited both vulnerabilities within services like WordPress and Drupal to install cryptojacking scripts on these websites, but have also pirated premium WordPress themes and included a cryptojacking script, and by doing so, spreading their cryptojacking infection over a large number of websites. So this new cyber threat has obviously attracted the attention of the academic world, as we've seen a number of papers being published on this matter. But they are all primarily focused on detecting these cryptojacking scripts within the browser in the most robust way, instead of focusing on understanding the actual ecosystem. Additionally, they have estimated the prevalence of such cryptojacking attacks by crawling the Alexa top 1 million list, and their quantifications varied by a factor of 4. Finally, they have found out that the most prevailing attack vectors were the compromised websites and malicious advertisements attack vectors. Well, in this work, we characterized the whole ecosystem of cryptojacking across a truly random sample of 20% of the internet, and quantify actor methods and the used attack vectors of these cryptojacking attacks. So how do we do it? Well, we first need a truly random sample of internet websites. So we took 20% of all websites in the .com zone, 20% of all websites in the .net zone, and across 20% of all other 1100 TLDs. So this resulted in a list of 55 million websites, which we fed into our crawling infrastructure, and we actually crawled them twice. First, to check if the mining was happening on that website, we used the Minesweeper tool published by Konoff et al. Last year at CCS, which relies on WebAssembly analysis to detect whether there was mining happening on that page. Additionally, we wanted to know how this mining was taking place. So we used another crawler to extract site keys, WebSocket proxy connections, initiator files, which start the whole mining operation in order to do campaign analysis afterwards. So since the cryptojacking landscape is evolving pretty fast, we deployed this on a large scale on 60 servers within the university network, and we were running 720 simultaneous crawlers for a period of 3 months.
Okay, so the first thing that we now did was we also looked at the Alexa 1 million, because that's what previous studies have been doing so far. And so the CCS paper from last year not only gave the crawler to detect using WebAssembly analysis, but they also mentioned the sites that were cryptojacking. So we recrawled them 9 months later, and in order to see what's going on here. As you see here in this graph, most of the activity has actually stopped. Most of the sites are no longer mining anymore. And so this was something that we also observed when keeping crawling this. So the reason we had 700 crawlers simultaneously running, we wanted to turn this around every couple of hours and crawl all of these sites. So we did this every second day, and we saw that a lot of fluctuation happens within these top sites. There's a lot of mining changing. And as you look at the total percentage, there was like this large variation, and 1 year later it's even lower than that. But the Alexa 1 million is just like a small part of the internet. It's less than 1%, and it's a very privileged group. So how does this go in the entire internet? Well, when you look at the random sample of the internet, the 20% of everything, you see that cryptojacking is relatively uncommon. It's only 0.011% of all sites that are doing this. So if you are looking at the Alexa, you're overestimating the problem by a factor of 5. When you break this down into individual TLDs, you see that this average of 0.11, which is the red line, it depends a lot on which zone you're looking at. So, for example, in the Russian zone or the Brazilian zone, cryptojacking is pretty common. If you're looking at a GTLD such as .pro, it is almost as high as the Alexa 1 million. But if you look at some other zones, such as top.info or .org, it is comparatively clean. So that's rather interesting to see such diverse manifestation of this problem. The next thing that we can do is we can understand what kind of services are being used now. So there's a number of different companies that provide the toolkit, the environment for web-based crypto mining, and we can determine which service is being used based on the indicator file on the startup. So let's take, for example, CoinHive, CryptoLoot, and CoinImp, 3 of the major ones. They all provide a WebAssembly, they all provide a startup file, and it depends just an API call on what you're going to start up specifically. So we can now turn to all of these sites and see what is being started and how does that work. When you look at this, for the 2 data sets, the Alexa 1 million and the random sample, you see that the installation base is relatively similar. The blue bar is CoinHive, which is the company that first introduced web-based crypto mining, was the first on the market, and they do have by far the largest market share. It's about 40% in the top 1 million, and it's about 50% in the random sample. The relative ranking of the different services and the market shares are surprisingly similar. So when you do crawl the Alexa 1 million or the random sample, it doesn't really matter so much. However, this is just the installation base. This is where the site was included, which kind of service it would ping to. However, this doesn't really tell you anything how much turnover there is, how much money they're making. So here it seems like CoinHive is really the biggest player in the market. In order to answer this, we need to understand how many sites, how many users are actually visiting these sites and how much crypto mining there's taking place. In order to figure that out, we teamed up with a tier 1 network operator, and we collected the daily number of flows from client IP addresses towards the WebSocket proxies, because that's where they are calling in and they're reporting found hashes or retrieving the instruction files. So by doing this, we get this 15 months evolution of connections made to these proxy service. And you see CoinHive starts, that's happened in October 2017. Very soon competitors enter the market. CoinHive for a while was actually a dominant player around April 2018, and then it is greatly overshadowed by CoinImp. So if you recall the last graph, you see that CoinImp actually didn't have a large installation base. So it doesn't matter that you have a lot of clients, it matters which clients you have and where they're located. What's also curious to see is that there is a lot of transitioning, a lot of turnover happening. I mentioned previously, we are doing this every second day to understand how sites switch from one customer to the next. Look at the purple spike. That is WordPress Monero plugin that was released in February 2018. It came out of nothing, became within a couple of days the largest installation base, the largest service, and went into oblivion just 8 weeks later. Towards October 2018, you see that there's a general downcline. The Monero price decreases. It was less profitable. And you see a general loss in this cryptojacking activity. And approximately all of these servers are going towards the same market share. So if you want to make a lot of money, you are infecting a site where a lot of people are going to. Or what you can also do is you can get a lot of sites which are all combined mining for your purpose. And so what we want to know is now how many of these individual infections are belonging to the same actor. So we need to link individual infections to campaigns. And we can do this because if you're going to farm this out to many infected sites, you're going to reuse some indicators. You're reusing some of your infrastructure because that's the easy way of economies of scale of doing this. So we call a campaign when there's at least 5 infected sites belonging to the same person. And how do we find a campaign? Well, let's look at the workflow here again. If you get an HTTP response and has the same site key, it must be the same actor, because why would somebody mine coin for a different bank account? So it must be the same person. If you look at the WebSocket proxy, a lot of them, actually most of them, run their own infrastructure. We can say that this is the same person, because why would they run infrastructure for the profit of somebody else? And then if you look at the JavaScript file, like the way the infection is happening and how it's being called, what configuration values there are, if these are similar or identical, it must be the same person. And we do this by a stack trace analysis. We understand from which file the call graph happened in which order in order to have a high confidence value. So based on these indicators that we had, we are now starting a new crawl. And we're going to target this crawl in finding campaigns. And we detected a total of more than 10,000 actively cryptojacking websites. This figure clusters these. Each dot is one particular website. The color says which crypto mining service it's being used. And in this force-directed layout, individual points are being pulled together if they're sharing indicators. So naturally, you see the big clusters. Those are the ones with the same indicator file. Those are the ones with the same site key, etc., etc. And you see the emergence of very, very large campaigns all working together. In total, we find more than 200 of these. And approximately half of the entire ecosystem is actually organized and part of a campaign. And that means more than 5 individual sites working for a single actor. Curiously, if you look at this, the largest actor that we found has almost 1,000 websites under their control. So last year's CCS paper, to put this into perspective, found less than that in total cryptojacking in the ecosystem. So it's very largely driven by organized activity by actors who are trying to make the most money out of it. So there's a lot of different campaigns, and you can analyze them. More details of this are in the paper. One of them I will point out here, and you can see what kind of analysis behind that. That is somebody who is targeting the Bittrex 24 custom relationship management system, has found a vulnerability there, and is infecting 850 websites. The most prominent victim was the Ministry of Education of Belarus. And what was interesting about them is that it was specifically targeting this application, and the miner was swappable. So they could mine for 2 different sites, and they were randomly deciding which one to pick at a given moment. So they hid this within the Bittrex core loader. So this was actually a targeted attack. They know precisely what to go for. The mining script was pretty standard, but they included evasion techniques. So when you try to debug this, they were immediately dumping all the code that was related to this in order to avoid any detection. So we analyzed all of these campaigns manually, and we also had our tool chain that was now taking them apart and understanding where the call graph came from and how the stack trace looked like and what actually happened. And when you look at this in a bigger scheme, you see that most of these infections are coming from third-party compromises. So these are compromised content management system templates. So somebody downloads a template for WordPress, and there's a miner embedded. These were external scripts, such as the jQuery, and there was a miner in there, or a credit card validation script with a miner in there, or libraries that you would use within the JavaScript ecosystem. As a matter of fact, 60% of all cryptojacking was the result of third-party software compromises. So remember previous works that most compromises happened as a result of compromised websites and malicious advertisement. If you add this together, this is less than 30%. By far, the big elephant in the room is third-party software. So why is this happening? Well, remember, if you're crawling the Alexa 1 million, you're looking at a very specific subset of the internet. These are not sites where somebody uses WordPress to run their e-commerce presence and more foremost goes on the internet and downloads a shady template in order to save money. While they would be running their own dedicated e-commerce platforms, they would have web designers, they would not be at risk for linking to externally linked libraries in order to save some money. So therefore, if you're looking at this particular target group, you are missing the biggest attack vector that there actually is that you can discover when you're looking at the internet at large. So what are the key takeaways? If you really want to understand this criminal problem of cryptojacking, we have to understand the ecosystem. And in order to understand the ecosystem, campaign analysis is a key technique to do this. And we do see this is necessary because half of the activity that we see is already related to organized activity, organized individual actors that are doing this at scale. What we also know is that third-party software is by far the main attack vector that we need to be worried about. And that's actually very difficult to target. There were many talks at this conference that also mentioned compromises in open source software ecosystems. And this is extremely difficult for the average user to do something about because they don't have the knowledge, they're just downloading something. So how can you be sure that if you have a library that invokes a library, that there's everything clean around that? That's something that we as a community should focus on. And we have to be very observant that if we use studies of the internet based, for example, on the Alexa 1 million as a top list, we are looking at a very biased sample because these are specific companies, they are structurally different from how the rest of the internet looks like. So this was just a quick taster. There's a number of additional aspects in the paper. We have also looked into hiding and obfuscation techniques. There's various levels and various sophistication levels of hiding going on. If you ever wondered what Harry Potter has to do with cryptojacking, read our paper. We also see that this hiding is much more prevalent where they are trying to actively hide because it's somewhere deep in the software tool chain. And we also interestingly see that there's different market shares and different prevalence for certain services across different countries. During the end of the study, something very remarkable happened. The largest company that was providing these web-based crypto mining, CoinHive, was ceasing their operation because it was no longer profitable for them. So what we could observe was the tear down of the entire infrastructure when the biggest provider left the ecosystem, and how did the ecosystem afterwards react based on that? So what's there for the future? We found various sites, we found various new techniques. These indicators have been shared with online blacklists, so if you're having one of those plugins or antivirus modules that protect you against these kind of threats, our information is in there and keeping you safe. As a matter of the study, we also found something very interesting. There was a fifth attack vector that we hadn't on our radar when we started this. What we discovered was that there was a cyber criminal group that was attacking internet routers and doing in the middle attack and rewriting the HTML code while it flowed through the router. And one router manufacturer, 70% of their devices were compromised. So this is in our upcoming CCS paper, the analysis of this and what concretely happened there. And I thank you for your attention, and I invite your questions. Thank you.
Okay, I'm afraid we have time for maybe one 20-second question. Is it fast?
Yeah, quick. Again, Saad from UCF. I really like your presentation. I've got one question. When you talk about Alexa 1 million, measuring them a longitudinal study, so there is a paper in IMC last year that shows that there's a significant churn in Alexa 1 million. Do you think that's the reason why some of your results would be different from CCS 2018 Minesweeper?
Yes and no. So there are two aspects to it. So exactly that is one of the key papers that analyze this. So if you look in the turnover rate of the Alexa 1 million, there are bad days where you have 100,000, 200,000 sites being swapped out, especially at the long tail of the distribution. This is a part of this, but that's very difficult to measure objectively out. The other part, I think, is that the ecosystem has been becoming a bit more aware of this problem and has also noticed that this is not too profitable for their operation. So I think it's a general decline in this because the Monero price also dropped. It is less useful, and also issues such as the Alexa 1 million turnover. But I think this should probably average out on a large scale.
Okay, let's thank Hugo and Christian, and indeed all the speakers again.